My name is Christian Hall. I am the writer of 14 Steps to Happiness, a comprehensive program to help you beat depression. And you are my hero because you are watching this video right now, you're dealing with your pain and you are struggling through your depression. And I promise you that things are gonna get better. It may take some time, but it's gonna get better. Today, I'm gonna talk about therapy, step 6. And therapy is a big topic, of course, and you may or may not have tried it before. Maybe you've gone to a therapist for many years, or maybe you have not tried it at all. And of course, depending on where in the world you are, therapy is going to mean two or many different things, depending on circumstances, depending on the healthcare in your country and in the city that you live in. So my experience is from a Norwegian standpoint. But having said that, I believe that the actual therapy session in itself is probably going to look fairly similar wherever in the world you are sitting. So I want to start with talking a bit about my own experience with therapy. So when I lost my father as 14, I went into sorrow, that went into depression. I was then depressed for many years. And all the time I had people around me, especially my sister and my mom, that were saying that you need to talk to someone. And I was depressed, and then you don't listen to good advice, right? So I was just, I don't need to talk to anyone because I'm gonna get stuck in this for all my life. It's always going to be this black hole that I'm sitting in, and I will always be depressed. But finally, and I think my mom and my sister had to basically yell at me for many years, I finally listened to them and I finally started to go to therapy. And I was really, really lucky. I got this great guy, really experienced, a wise man. And him and me, we worked together for 2 years, and that was very intensive, sometimes several sessions a week. Every session could last 1 to 2 hours. And most of it was focused around my relationship to my dad. Because as you may recall from the introduction, my dad was struggling with alcoholism. He was also abusing medications. He was severely depressed and had a lot of anxiety. So there were a lot of traumatic experiences in my childhood and upbringing. I mean, my dad was a really kind man, so I didn't have to go through any kind of abuse, like physical abuse or sexual abuse or anything like that. But it was just a lot of really scary moments in my childhood because we never knew if my dad was going to be super drunk or sober whenever I got home from school. So anyways, I never allowed myself to be angry with my dad, and through those 2 years of therapy, I could finally allow myself to be angry, and I could go into those really tightly knit, complex, entangled emotions of guilt, sorrow, anger, all of these things, and I could clear that up. So I was able to make good of the mess of emotions in my head, and that, of course, was extremely important for me. And I think maybe that is the foremost and the most important part of therapy, is to have some kind of person, a professional, that you can talk to and just sort out the emotional mess so that things become clearer for you. So therapy, I really highly recommend that you try it if you haven't already. At the same time, I also believe that therapy shouldn't be the only thing you do if you're depressed, because therapy is not going to make you exercise more. It's not necessarily going to improve your sleep. It's not necessarily going to improve your diet and all these things. So what I strongly believe is that you do need this 14-step program so that you can attack the illness of depression from as many angles as possible, and where therapy is certainly a really important one. Another thing that I can say about therapy is that therapists are humans like everyone else, right? So that means that you may be lucky or not lucky at all, depending on what kind of therapist that you actually put an appointment with. So that means if you find that you don't have the necessary chemistry with your therapist, and that goes on for, let's say, 2 or 3 sessions, you may want to swap and find another therapist that you can try, because this happened to me. As I said, my first therapist was excellent. The second one I went to some years after was really a disaster for me. Maybe he was an excellent therapist for someone else, but for me, it was just a total disaster, and he took me in the opposite direction of what I wanted. And this may be the case for you. So experiment. Try different sorts of therapy. Make sure that the therapist that you work with ideally is not only like the old school psychoanalysis, like the Freudian school of psychology, but ideally this person should also master cognitive behavioral therapy and also some interventions from positive psychology. But in any case, if you haven't done it already, I really recommend you to start trying out therapy and see where it takes you. Thanks.